Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel Query Solution. So today it's the sixth session on the chapter life process that we are talking today, and the topic that we are going to discuss today is the concept of respiration, this important life process that happens in your body. So just to add, this concept of respiration is not that I am going to cover entirely in one video. There will be two separate sessions that I'll take on the concept of respiration. In this video today, we are going to talk about, first of all, what is respiration and introduction on respiration, what are the types of respiration, and what is the mechanism of respiration. Okay, these are the three topics that we are going to talk today. And in our next session, we are going to talk about the human respiratory system and all its detail. Okay, so let us first of all understand what is the meaning of the term respiration here. So do you feel that normal inhalation and exhalation, that we say inhalation and exhalation of the gas is what is respiration? Do you feel so? This is what is the meaning of respiration. So I would say a no. Inhaling and exhaling the gases right now also, right? You are inhaling through your nose and you are exhaling back through your nose. This is what is respiration? So the answer is a no. That's not what respiration is. But yes, this process of inhalation and exhalation is important. And why it is important? First of all, because when you are inhaling, what gas are you inhaling? You are inhaling oxygen. Right now also, the gas that you are taking in through your mouth is actually oxygen. And what you are expelling out of your mouth is what? Or your nose. The gas that you are expelling out through your nose is actually the carbon dioxide. So just think, you are inhaling oxygen, you don't even know, right? What you feel? You are inhaling air and you are exhaling air. But what component in the air are you inhaling, exhaling? So when you are inhaling, it's okay, we do know oxygen is there all around us, so we are inhaling. But how come it got converted into CO2? So the answer lies because this oxygen which you have inhaled is utilized by the process of respiration. That respiration as a process require, what does it require? So respiration first of all require oxygen. Okay, what would be the first requirement a respiration process would need? It would require oxygen. Okay, another important thing it would require is a glucose molecule. Now how are you going to get this? Just think about it. Just now as we discussed, who is going to give oxygen for the process of respiration? So you are going to get your oxygen through the process of breathing, right? Just now we discussed the inhaling and exhaling. So through inhaling, what you are going to get is your oxygen. How are you going to get this glucose for respiration? So in our previous video, we have already talked about the concept of digestion, right? We talked about the human digestive system. And we do know that whatever food now we are eating is completely getting broken down into simple ones. And here, which simple food are we talking about? So we are talking about glucose. So we have understood in the digestion process that once the food gets digested, it gets converted to glucose, the simple version of carbohydrates, right? Now, another important thing you should know, where are you actually requiring this glucose and oxygen? Is there any place in your body that require glucose and oxygen? So the answer is yes. Where do you require this oxygen and glucose presence? So you require this at the cellular level of your body. We do know that cells are the structural and the functional unit. They are the basic building block of your whole body. The hands that you have, the legs you have, the face you have, all internally are comprising of these minute millions of units which are known as cells. So the cellular level, the cells of your body require this oxygen and the cells of your body require this glucose. And as we discussed, who is going to give the oxygen to the cells? So the breathing process is going to give oxygen to the cell. Who is going to give glucose to the cells? So the digestion process that we have gone through, that is going to give glucose to the cell. But who is actually going to bring this oxygen and glucose to the cell? So the important fundamental flowing material that we have in our body is actually the blood. So we do know that whenever we are inhaling, the oxygen is getting mixed with your blood going to your cell. When digestion is happening in your small intestine, we studied in our last video that there are villi structures, right? These villi are going to have the connection of blood, and this blood is actually going to carry your glucose and give to the cells of your body. So when your cells is needing these two material, the blood in a way is actually providing this material to the cell. Now, when your cell has these two material, what is your cell going to do at the end of the day? So we do know cells have cell organelles, right? We have studied in class 9. There is something which is known as mitochondria. And what is mitochondria? It is the powerhouse of cell, right? That is what you would have studied in grade 9th actually. Now what is your mitochondria going to do? It is going to oxidize this glucose. So let me write down oxidation. What is your mitochondria going to do? It is going to oxidize. Now to simply understand what is oxidation, we can say it is going to burn your oxygen. And for burning something, we know what do we need? We require oxygen. That is why I have written for respiration we require oxygen and glucose. So at your cellular level, what is your cell going to do? When it has these two material, it is going to oxidize this glucose. It is going to burn this glucose in the presence of oxygen. And then what it is going to do? Okay, fine, it has oxidized, it has burned the glucose. Now it is going to produce your energy. And energy in the form of what? Energy in the form of ATP. We are going to talk about ATP in detail in just a while, but right now just understand, when your glucose gets oxidized at your cellular level, it is going to generate energy in the form of ATP. What else it is going to produce? So ATP is one thing, but that's not all. Along with it, it is also going to produce carbon dioxide and water. So imagine what gas you inhaled. As I asked you previously, you inhaled oxygen. The oxygen was utilized for entirely this process of respiration. And once the respiration is done, what are the end products you are going to get? So you are going to get 3 end products, as you can see. Energy molecule in the form of ATP, the gas which is carbon dioxide, and water vapors. And this is what the CO2 I was talking about. So the blood that has brought this oxygen at your cells, then at your cellular level, when this respiration process is done, which we have also studied, and also we can say this entire process as assimilation. Once this process is done and your energy molecules are produced, there is a new gas which has formed, which is carbon dioxide. So this blood again is going to carry this carbon dioxide, bring it back to the lungs of your body, and that is what you are expelling out of your body. So when you are inhaling oxygen, but when you are exhaling a gas, you are actually exhaling what? You are exhaling the carbon dioxide. Alright. So just to quickly summarize now again to you, what is respiration? As I said, respiration is a process which involves 3 main things. You have to write down 3 important key lines or key points when you are defining respiration. The process which involves oxidation of the glucose, step 1, oxidation of the glucose in the presence of oxygen, which leads to generation of energy, that's key point number 2. And along with generation of energy, even it involves the removal of your waste products, which are CO2 and water. When all these 3 things gets completed, this is what we define the process of respiration as. Alright, so I hope I have made you clear what is the difference between breathing and respiration right now, and what is this entire process of respiration that we are going to discuss in detail. Alright, now let us talk about this energy currency in a little detail, that I have said you what is ATP right now. Okay. So I think many of you would know what is ATP. ATP is something we say as adenosine triphosphate. I think many of you would know what does ATP stands for. So it stands for adenosine triphosphate. Now see, adenosine is a nucleotide molecule. Alright, it's a nitrogen based compound basically. Triphosphate, when I am speaking, what do you mean by triphosphate? Tri means here something we are talking about in multiples of 3. And what phosphate? So adenosine is actually a molecule which has 3 phosphate linkages into it, or 3 phosphate bonds into it. This is what is a ATP molecule. So when actually you are oxidizing the food and you are getting energy, you are actually producing the ATP molecules, right, which are triphosphate molecules. How these triphosphate molecules are formed, this is also very important for you to know. So as you can see, ATP, which is a triphosphate molecule, it is produced by a combination of ADP plus inorganic phosphate. This is very important. So if I am saying ATP is adenosine triphosphate, I think many of you can guess what would be ADP then. ADP would be adenosine diphosphate. So it has 2 phosphate molecules, 2 phosphate bonds into it. Along with it, when one inorganic phosphate also matches, so you think, imagine it's 2 plus 1. What is it is going to give you? So it is going to give you a molecule of triphosphate, and that is what is ATP is all about. Now when in this ATP molecule, the phosphate bonds which are there, they break in the presence of water molecule. What they release, this is what they release. When one molecule of ATP is broken down, the phosphate bonds in the ATP are broken down, it releases 30.5 kilojoules of energy. And this is what entirely we are speaking back and back. We get energy. But just see how smart your body is behaving. You have eaten the food, you got glucose. You are inhaling a gas, you got oxygen. Once it is done, once the blood bring all this at the cellular level of your body is going to burn this. The cell is going to burn this glucose in the presence of oxygen, which is oxidation. It is going to release energy, which is ATP molecule, but that's not all. The ATP still has to break down. Once this one molecule of ATP will break, how much energy it is actually going to liberate? So it is going to give you 30.5 kilojoules of energy. This is the energy, the power that we are talking. Once ATP breaks, then is what you are going to get your energy, and along with it, what end products are you going to get? So you are going to get end products like CO2 and water along with it. So respiration is process of oxidation of the food, generation of your energy, and then removal of these waste products also out of your body. This is what is respiration is all about. Alright. And another important thing, why do we say this respiration as a cellular respiration? What do you think? Why do we say this as a cellular respiration process? So the very important and easy thing I would say to you is, where is this entire process happening? So this is happening at the level of your cell, right? Just now as we discussed, this is happening at the cellular level. And since this process is happening at a cellular level, we say this entire process as cellular respiration also. Okay? In the next section now we are going to talk about what are the different types of respiration, because it's not always necessary that is your body is going to get oxygen. There would be times where your body can have no oxygen at all, like in some organisms, or there can be a lack of oxygen also. In that case, what are the different end products that we are going to get is what we are going to discuss now. Okay, so after understanding what is respiration, now let us try to understand what are the different types of respiration. Okay, so the first type of respiration that we have discussed completely this process is something which is known as aerobic respiration. And this aerobic respiration is also known as the process where the food gets oxidized completely. So this is also known as a process of complete oxidation. So I can also say this process as complete oxidation. Okay. So what is this aerobic respiration? So just now as we discussed, the process where glucose is going to get oxidized in the presence of oxygen, and it is going to generate carbon dioxide, water molecules, and along with energy in the form of ATP. This is what is known as aerobic respiration, this entire thing that we have discussed. Now see, if there is not a presence of any oxygen, there is no oxygen present at all, in that case also can oxidation happen? Do you think so? So the answer is yes. And what is then that process known as? So that is known as anaerobic respiration. Or I can also say this process as incomplete oxidation. Now I will tell you why. So what is incomplete oxidation? The process where your glucose is getting oxidized. So glucose is getting oxidized in the absence of oxygen. Here there was presence, so I have drawn a plus sign. Here there is absence, so I am drawing a negative sign. So even in the absence of oxygen also glucose can get oxidized, but there will not be these end products that they are going to generate. Definitely there will be an energy which will be produced, but here in place of CO2 and water directly, the body is going to produce actually carbon dioxide, but along with that it is going to produce an alcohol which is known as ethanol or ethyl alcohol. So it is going to generate an alcohol which is known as ethanol, and along with this energy is going to produce, right? So this stage, so how would you know if there is complete oxidation or incomplete oxidation? If a question is asked in exam, how can you tell that glucose has been completely oxidized or it has been incompletely oxidized? So you can give this answer by looking at the end product. If your end products are carbon dioxide, water and energy, then definitely this is a reaction where oxygen was present as it was needed and it has led to complete oxidation. But if your end products are carbon dioxide, ethanol and energy, then here the oxidation would be incomplete oxidation. And let me tell you another important thing. This anaerobic respiration is also known as fermentation. Now let me give you a very good example here. Everybody of you would be eating fermented foods, right? Like dosa, idli or dhokla and all such things, right? Your mom or anyone at home used to make it, right? Now if this batter, if for example you're eating dosa or you're eating idli at your home and your mom or someone in the home has made this, what do? They blend the rice, they blend the dal, and then they sometime mix with curd, or they normally cover it and then they keep it in sunlight for a while, right? For 10-12 good hours they keep it. Now what happens once after fermentation or after 10-12 hours, they are going to see, what do you see? It tastes differently, right? When the batter was initially mixed, like rice and dal were initially mixed in the mixer, it tasted different. But after keeping it closed, right, they keep it closed. After keeping it closed, which is absence of oxygen, after you keep it closed means oxygen cutoff has happened. So after keeping it closed for 10 to 12 hours, what is happening? Your batter is getting fermented. And that is the reason when after fermentation you taste it, it tastes different. Why? Because there is production of ethyl alcohol and ethanol that has happened. And do you see that small bubbles also on the dosa batter? After your mother opens up the batter lid after 10 or 12 hours, you would see small bubbles which will be there. What are those bubbles of? Have you ever thought of? That is nothing but the CO2 gas. So imagine the bubbles are of gas which is here. The taste which is different is because of ethanol, and the yeast which is there or the microbes which are there inside have actually led to incomplete oxidation. So this is the best example of fermentation that you can see, which we generally see in the case of yeast cells, right, or prokaryotic cells and some eukaryotic cells also. Aerobic respiration is what we see in our own body, right, in the eukaryotic organism cell. Anaerobic respiration is what we see in prokaryotic and some eukaryotic cells. Now there is another mode of respiration which is known as lactic acid fermentation. Now let me tell you, this is another process that happens in your own body. Now when does this process happen? When somebody is doing very rigorous exercise. What happens when you are jumping a lot, or when you are doing some exercise which is involving high physical activity? What happens? You start breathing fast, right? And have you ever noticed in such cases your body or your leg muscles or hand muscles starts giving you cramps also? Now why does that happen? That happens because in this stage, when you are working out very rigorously, your body is requiring more energy, your body is requiring more oxygen, but it is not getting as much oxygen that it should get. So what happens in this case? The glucose which is there in your body, in the lack of oxygen, so there is not presence of oxygen as much needed, and there is not complete absence of oxygen also, but there is a lack of oxygen that has happened. In this case, where there is a lack of oxygen, especially when your body is working out or when you're breathing heavily, in that stage, when your body requires more energy and oxygen supply is less, your body produces a compound which is known as lactic acid. And this lactic acid is also going to generate you some energy, but not as much as you were getting in complete oxidation. So this process of respiration that I am saying, lactic acid, also happens in your body. And where does this happen? So this happen in your muscle cells, especially your muscle cells, because when you are working out, your muscle cells are working to the maximum, right? And when you get this lactic acid production, what happens? Your muscle cells starts generating cramps. Why? Because when lactic acid gets accumulated, it contracts your muscles. It makes your muscles stringent. It doesn't allow them to move easily. And accumulation of this acid is what is going to give you cramp. It is what is going to give you pain. But does it remain like that forever? So the answer is no, right? After some time, when you start breathing normally, or when you will put a hot water something, if you massage it and if you improve your blood circulation, this lactic acid breaks down and it comes down to a normal state. So this is another process of respiration that happens in your body. So respiration in turn is what we have discussed, but depending upon the presence and absence of oxygen, you can have different types of respirations also. Respiration can be aerobic or complete oxidation if there is ample availability of oxygen, and this is the end product which is going to give out. Anaerobic respiration, when there is absence of oxygen, this is also known as fermentation, and it is going to give you majorly ethanol along with carbon dioxide energy. And lastly, it is the lactic acid fermentation, which happens in your own cells, the muscle cells of your body, in which the glucose is broken down in the condition where there is lack of oxygen, generating lactic acid and energy out of it. Now see, there is another important aspect that we should be covering here. which is a little in-depth understanding of respiration. Now here what am I talking about? So I am talking about the mechanism of respiration to you. So it is just a summary. There is just a little twist here, but entirely what we have understood by now is what I am explaining you. Now in the mechanism of respiration, we are going to discuss two things here. One is what is glycolysis, another is what is a Krebs cycle. Okay. So one thing we are going to talk is glycolysis, where the glucose that here we are talking gets broken down to produce energy. The glucose, which is a 6-carbon compound molecule, is not directly converted. There is a little twist at the biochemical level that happen in your body. The 6-carbon compound molecule glucose gets converted to a 3-carbon compound molecule which is known as pyruvate. And this conversion of glucose to pyruvate, which happens in the cytoplasm of your cells, of all the cell, irrespective whichever way of respiration here we are talking. But in the cytoplasm of your cell, when the glucose is converted to pyruvate, this process is known as glycolysis. Lysis means breaking down, glyco means glucose. So the breaking down of glucose, the 6-carbon compound molecule into a 3-carbon compound molecule which is pyruvate in the cytoplasm that happen is what is known as glycolysis. So in mechanism of respiration, the first stage is glycolysis, which is common. Any organism, any respiration, this first of all will happen irrespective of whatever condition. And then comes the next important thing or the next important stage, which is known as Krebs cycle. So we don't need to study so much in detail, but you should know the meaning, because in NCERT there is a little description given. So a basic introduction is what you need to know. Glycolysis is breaking down of glucose to pyruvate. Now once the pyruvate is available, now depending upon if oxygen is there, oxygen is not there, or is there a lack of oxygen, now once your pyruvate is going to give you energy, the breaking down further of pyruvate to release energy, this is what is known as Krebs cycle. So this much is important for you to understand. Alright, so I'll just draw a quick summary here to explain you what is this all about. Alright, so as you can see over here, this is the entire mechanism of respiration to summarize, and this is what we have already been talking about. But just to quickly make you understand, first of all, the glucose, which is a 6-carbon compound molecule, will be broken down into a 3-carbon compound molecule which is known as pyruvate, right? And this, where does this happen? This happens in the cytoplasm of your cell, and this process of breaking down glucose into pyruvate is something which is known as glycolysis. So this is common. This is a common process of respiration which happens irrespective oxygen is there, not there, which organism, prokaryotic, eukaryotic, but this will happen common to all. The 6-carbon will be broken to 3-carbon. So first stage of respiration is done, which is glycolysis. Now after the pyruvate is available, now we will see if oxygen is there or not there. There comes the picture of Krebs cycle. So as we have discussed here in the same section is what we are going to talk. If there is absence of oxygen which is there, what are the end products we are going to get? So in the case of absence of oxygen, we are going to get carbon dioxide, ethanol and energy. And the same is what I have written here. In the case of absence, we are going to get ethanol, carbon dioxide and energy in the form of ATP. If there is presence of oxygen, we are going to get CO2, water and ATP. And if there is a lack of oxygen, we are going to get the process of lactic acid fermentation, where there will be production of a 3-carbon compound molecule lactic acid along with ATP. So these are the different types of ATP molecules we are going to get. Very important last part that I am telling you, when there is aerobic respiration happening, how many molecules of ATP are generated? So total 38 ATP molecules. If there is absence of oxygen, how many molecules of ATP are generated? Only 2 molecules of ATP. And even in the case of lactic acid, how many molecules of ATP are produced? Only 2. So imagine, now I think you can understand why we say this process as complete oxidation, because here it allows your glucose to completely burn, and once your glucose completely burn, it generates 38 molecules of ATP. But in the case of anaerobic and lactic acid, we are getting only 2 molecules of ATP. So the energy efficiency process, if we see, aerobic is the best compared to if oxygen availability is good, but then these are the least generating energy molecule. So this was all about an introductory session on what is respiration, what are the different types of respiration, and what is the actual mechanism of respiration. In our next class and in our next session, we are going to talk about the process of human respiratory system in detail. If you are liking my video, give a thumbs up, like the videos, share it with your friends, and thank you for watching the video. Have a good day.